Good afternoon, my little spuds. How you doing? It's wee Paddy from across the shuck. And you've seen by the title, Paddy, are all slip joints the same? No, they're not the same. So I thought we'll have a little conversation about what they are. And for those who are maybe thinking of getting into them, it might help you decide which avenue you want to go down. I'm going to talk about this one first of all because I need to get this done. This is the last day. You can now order these tonight at different time schedules all around the world. In the UK at 1900 tonight, you can go to frameourknives.co.uk, get in and order one of these knives. We have a few extras, so there's more chance of you getting one. These are incredible knives. Incredible. This is the Jack Wolf, the next iteration, and it's probably the most talked about non-locking knife that's around at the minute because of its high standard of making, its high standard of the materials it uses, and just the precision that Ben Belkin, who is the owner and proprietor of Jack Wolf Knives, has put into this. This is a heart and soul knife, and it is amazing. So tonight, 1900 in the UK, you can order one of these. And when I say we've got double the amount, it's still not a huge amount, so do not leave it until tomorrow because you might miss it. And it's definitely one that you do not want to miss. This is a great work knife, or especially if you get in the carbon fiber one or whatever, it's a great showpiece to have in your collection. Because there's knife users, there's knife abusers, there's not, people who just have them as decorative pieces. We're all different, and that's all right, as long as you know what you're buying and you're happy. So this knife is this is this new era of a modern interpretation. This one is of traditional slip joints. Now, the reason I'm saying that, because I needed to break this down. It's funny, I've had so many questions. The reason I'm saying it's a modern interpretation of a traditional is because it's using traditional patterns and it has modern materials like titanium and M390. That's why I'm calling it that. And this is just the perfect example if you want a high retention knife in excellent materials, which is a showpiece, but also I believe in the micarta, a great workpiece. Just if you want to use it, this one is a hand-me-down to your children. They're that good, literally that good. So what makes it a modern interpretation? Well, one, it is the materials, but you can always say, look, time progresses, materials should get better. But with a traditional knife, me personally, I like 1095 or O1 tool steel. They're the steels that I want. Now, you can get stainless steel ones, but they all started as carbon steel until stainless came along, 30s or 40s, can't even remember. But this one is a modern interpretation because this is screwed together. You can actually take this all apart if you wanted to. You never need to. And if you go onto Jack Wolf Knives Instagram, you'll find the lead to where Ben has done a video on taking this apart, and he does it so you don't have to. And my joy about traditional slip joints is you don't have to take them apart. They're just there for life. You don't need to with this unless some strange things would happen. But this is screwed together. So you have got the things that the screws might back out. You might have to put Loctite in them. At times, at the minute, I don't even want to touch it. But that's what a modern interpretation is. The steel and the handle material titanium, yes, they're modern, but I mean, everything's got to move along. If there's not many people now, apart from sort of Case and the Sheffield knives and also GEC, that are making handmade traditional knives. That's a dying art, and I don't want it ever to go away. But this is a modern interpretation, and as a modern interpretation, this is fantastic. The price is a lot dearer. I mean, this is £250 for the micarta version. Now, I dyed this one, the red colour, but it comes in black micarta, green micarta, and a beige micarta, or natural. This was natural. I dyed it to red because I just like red as a colour. This is about £250. The carbon fibre one, which to me is the real show knife. I've got one here. This is one of Jack Wolf's knives in carbon fibre. This is an absolute beauty. Absolute stunning with this is copper infused carbon fibre, copper or brass in it. But it's a beautiful knife. And to me, that's a sort of collection piece. I use all of them, but that's a collection piece. It'll only ever get light use. This will get used fully. I know it will, because it's my favourite blade shape. So that's tonight at 1900. Do not wait till tomorrow if you can. Just get it tonight. So that's a modern. What is a traditional knife? Well, I'll put that up there. Here's what we all think of when you think of a traditional knife. Usually multi-bladed, although there's lots of single-bladed, but multi-bladed. This is a jackknife where they both come from one end. This is an old traditional knife. An absolute stunning. Like, this is a fair age on this. You know, you're talking a good age. But it's lovely. The blades are smaller on most of them, although they do have very large ones. And they did have back in the 1920s and 30s. They had very large blades. But this is what people would have carried in their pocket. Boys, men, anybody at all would have carried a traditional knife, something like this. This has got Delrin handles, but there was a lot of bone used. There was stag used. But it's just a traditional knife, and it's handmade. It's pinned, so it doesn't come apart. You've got bolsters, end caps, you've all sorts, bear heads. There's all sorts of different traditional knives, and that's my joy. That would be the biggest part of my traditional collection, is getting these older ones. But to bring it up to date, this is my custom one, and you know that I love this. And I'm going to bring this down just to show you. That's a traditional. Here's another traditional. The shapes are very similar, but they're two different animals. Completely different animals. This is a traditional. This is a handmade custom knife from Ashley over at Ashley Harrison Custom Knives. This, as you know, this means a lot to me because it was my first custom knife that I had given the direction on what blade material to use. This is 01, what bone I wanted, what colour I wanted, the cutout I wanted, the shield. I picked everything to do with this knife and actually delivered a knife that just means so much to me. I genuinely love it. The craftsmanship in this knife is just fantastic. All hand done, hand hafted, just a proper handmade knife. This again is a fully traditional knife made in the old sort of way without a lot of machines. Yes, they do use them, but that's time. Time moves on. And then you come to this one. Now, I'm going to go to prices. I mean, you can pick these older ones up. I picked them up for £30, £40. This, to me, is about £150 now. I bought it a while back, but I would rate it at 100. You wouldn't get it out of my hand for any less than 150, and it's not for sale at that. But I wanted to keep it a reasonable price because Ashley's a reasonable dealer to, custom knife maker to work with. This is 250. That is a big jump from this to this. Which one is my favourite? Do you want to know something? The honest answer is, I just don't know, but I'm always going to go, if you're going to pin me down, I'll always go with a traditionally made one because that is my passion, is a traditionally made. But this is just a modern interpretation, as Ben's called it. It's a modern interpretation, but it's not a traditional knife. It's purporting to be traditional with its shape and bolsters and, the different patterns that are in traditional knives. But it'll never be traditional because it's not pinned together. That is the one thing that separates traditionals from modern traditionals. So we've got that. Traditional, that was the sort of knife that you'll think of, or, and then this is a modern traditional. Absolutely traditionally made, but again, it's made now, so it's modern compared to these older knives. The fit and finish and the rigidity of this knife is unbelievable. Unbelievable. But there is a price difference. And do you want to pay that difference? That's a real personal choice. And I mean, there's loads that'll say, I'm not paying £250 for a modern knife. Well, don't. But if you have a passion for these traditional looking, these are traditionally made, but this looks like them, but it's updated in every other way. The specifications for this are so intricate, and because they're making so many of them, it has to be done the way it's done, i.e., using machinery and stuff like that. But this is hafted, finished, hafted by hand. The blades are done by hand. It is fantastic. Now, what else do you got? Here's just a modern traditional. But I wouldn't call this. This to me is a modern slip joint. I hear people using that modern traditional. This is not. This is not a modern traditional at all in my eyes. This is a modern slip joint. An absolute beauty of a slip joint. This is the Ace Farley. Absolutely stunning knife. I love this knife. It's M390, the same as this. It's micarta. It doesn't have a bolster, but it's just a handle. It's incredibly comfortable, really useful knife, but it has a spring. So it's got the same sort of action that these have. Beautifully locks up and nothing holding it there. This can then be broken like these can without any effort. So there you go. That's a different type of one. This is a slip joint. It's just a slip joint. You can call it a modern slip joint, which I probably would. It's got a back spring. It has all the same attributes as these do, but it's screwed construction again. You can take the scales off this. I'm not too sure of the inside, but I know you can take the scales off it and change them, dye them, do what you want. That's modern. With these knives, the top two traditionals, you can't do that. You can dye the bone, but you have to put the whole knife into, if you want to do it, you have to put the whole knife into the pan and dye the bone with the blade in it. You just have to be a little bit more careful where heat is concerned. But this is a modern slip joint. It's got the back spring. It's got the modern steel M390, which lasts you for days and weeks maybe before you would need to redo it. These will not hold their edge as long. 1095 and 01 tool steel. So that's a modern slip joint, modern traditional, or a modern interpretation of a traditional. I'm going to get tongue-tied, I know I am, but I hope you're seeing there is a difference in them. Price-wise, this is about the same as this. I would grade this. This is about £150. That's about £150. Which one do you like the best, Pat? I'm always going to go for my traditional, but, and it's a huge but, I wouldn't want to miss out on this knife just to stick with traditional. I'm very fortunate that I got to get one of these. So I love this, and it's probably a really heavy used knife in my collection. This was green micarta. You can see it's changing now. It's got my filth signature, as Pete would say. So modern slip joint, modern interpretation of a traditional. And the last one I'm going to show you now, which is really popular at the minute, is the double detent. And this one is from Who Knives. I've just done the review on this one. Look at that. How cool is that? Flipper. So this is by no means a traditional knife, but it is a slip joint knife or a double detent knife. And I think when we're talking, I'll always refer to this as a double detent. I don't count it as a slip joint even. It's a double detent. This is a slip joint, modern because it has modern materials, but it is screwed construction. In my eyes, will never be called a traditional. This is a modern interpretation of a traditional, and these are traditionals. So there's four main ones. If we take this away, that's the four main ones that are now out on circulation and selling. You also have friction folders. It's the one thing I don't have many of, and none that I have to hand here at the moment. But I'll do a separate review on friction folders, because there's the older version of them, like the Higo Nakami, and then there's the modern versions, like your man Ord on Etsy, who makes beautifully engineered not slip joints. What is the word I'm looking for? It's gone. You know what I mean. It's me. Don't expect perfection. That's why we're all here. So let's just run through it. Traditional. modern interpretation of a traditional, a slip joint, and then a double detent. That is the four main ones that you're going to see about there. And it's choice. I'm very fortunate that I can afford these, and I've got these in my collection. And a lot of these were gifted to the channel for me to show, but I still have to work for them. I still have to make videos. I still have to give my time in for them knives. So I'm not ripping somebody off or taking something for nothing. You have to do something for it. And I like to give my knives on the channel. If somebody's donating now, I'll give them plenty of airtime, because that's my part in their promoting their company. That's what I should do. And doing videos like this, letting people understand what they're buying. And, these are the higher end. I could also do this with lower end ones. And if that's something you would like to see is a lower end selection, I can do that. But it's not going to make any difference in the knives. The makeup of the knives would still be exactly the same. Traditional, interpretation of a traditional, a slip joint and a double detent. So I hope that was helpful for those who maybe don't know. And I want to see more people coming into the hobby. So keep your eye out. Would you try one of these? Even if you love locking knives. I love locking knives. I just adore locking knives too. There's nothing wrong. This is a slip joint though. And this is probably my highest end knife. But I love Spyderco because they're creative. They try different things with blade steel. This is M390, the same as this, and the same as this, and the same as this. Them three are all M390. Does one cut any better than the other? The honest answer is yes, this. But they're all great cutters. They're all great to use. And a locking knife, there's nothing wrong with locking knives. You can collect both. And the interest you can get out of getting one of the older ones and collecting the older ones at £30, £40 on Etsy, wherever you get your second-hand knives, this is a passion completely separate. And then you can go into GECs, Case, Rough Rider. I collect them all. These are more cheaper. The older ones and the Rough Riders and the GEC are much cheaper than these. These are getting up into that 150 plus. They're all about 150 plus, or around 150. This is 135. But you know what I mean? These are usually, you're buying them for under 100. And then when you go up to GEC, it's somewhere around the 100. But enjoy. Don't pigeonhole yourself into, I'm just going to have titanium M390, because you can get different versions of titanium M390. There's three, and they will work as good as any knife you've got in your collection, this included. So there we go. I'm still talking, and I've finished. Right, I'm away. Goodbye. Thank you so much for listening. Let me know down below what you think of my interpretation of these beautiful knives. Thanks very much. Bye now.